fucking podcasting right now.
I've been getting into podcasts.
That's the podcast?
This could be a podcast.
Your podcast.
I've also listened to several podcasts.
The portable podcast edition.
I got you a podcast.
Podcast? That's still a thing?
Yeah.
Always murder podcast.
Podcast too loud.
I'm doing a podcast.
It's called a podcast.
Look, I have a podcast.
Because I like podcasts.
So it is a fairly influential podcast.
Your podcast is a mess.
Pretend podcasting isn't boring.
I'm busy with my podcast anyways.
Welcome to the Snobs podcast.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Snobs podcast. I'm your host, Mick Manhattan, joined by my good buddy, Joe, the man, the loud one is here. And I just want to say thank you to the best sponsors in the world who keep the lights on here. Shenanigans Gentlemen's Club, the best gentlemen's club in the world up in Schenectady, New York. Make sure you get out there and check them out because they are the best without a doubt. Hey, how you guys doing today? Welcome and thank you for listening to the podcast. Make sure you hit subscribe. Make sure you rate and review us wherever you're listening to us. We truly appreciate it. Again, I'm Mick Manhattan. Casey couldn't be here this week. He is feeling ill, but hopefully we can get him back next week. And we do have my good buddy, Mr. Joe Laude here, visual effects artist. What's the opposite of extraordinaire?
Ordinaire?
Visual effects artist ordinaire. No. Joe and I go back many years. You may have seen him on the show quite a few times, and I do appreciate him coming on today. He was an impromptu fill-in for Casey, but I'm going to ask him a bunch of VFX questions. And if you guys have VFX questions and you're watching live, please feel free to ask in the comments. What's going on, buddy? How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I actually just finished up a gig yesterday, 6-day VFX gig on music video. So
they still make those?
Yes, they do.
I'm happy to hear that, actually. I want them back. I'm
well,
tired.
A lot of them end up on YouTube nowadays. There's nothing like MTV anymore. It's just the band putting out their own marketing material. Actually, Queens of the Stone Age just put out a new music video today.
I haven't seen Queens of the Stone Age in years.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've heard their name in years.
Oh, really? No, they're still pretty active. Yeah,
well, can you tell me, was it actually Queens of the Stone Age you were working with this week?
No.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to make you blow your NDA. Right? I blow my NDA all the time, and Nestor loves it. So, Nestor Domingo Acquira. It's great. People will put that together eventually. It'll be all right. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing pretty good, I suppose.
Well, we're back again, and I thought it would just make it a nice, it's going to be an easy episode. We'll talk our top 5 in a bit. But honestly, man, I want to talk to you. We haven't had a chance talking a little bit, and I want to talk to you a little bit about the state of the film industry. I've been reading a lot lately, and you're closer in tune with it. I'm hearing a lot of below the line crew are not making their meat.
Yeah,
in terms of work, and that's horrifyingly sad.
That's been our experience as well. A lot of my wife, who you've had on the show before, she's an AD, and lately all she's coming across is indie stuff. And when she hears about something that's like a union gig, it's like, it's the only one, and they can only hire one person, and they've got tons of people to hire from.
Tell her to reach out to the DGA president and get free tickets for the Odyssey for all of us.
Yeah.
Because that needs to happen. I feel like all union members should get a free ticket.
They should.
I mean, EMC gives me a ticket just for owning some stock.
Actually, that's kind of a nice thing about the DGA is that they get issued a card, and there are certain locations, theaters, where they can go, and they can go see movies for free.
That's good. Smart. I'm glad to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
I will say this. I'm hearing that SAG it's like record numbers how many people are leaving SAG.
I haven't heard about that, but yeah, that sounds... I know that there have been kind of unprecedented, layoffs and like people being out of work in Los Angeles and stuff because they're moving it all over the place. The work, one of the big things is like post COVID, you had a big streaming boom because people were just sitting at home watching Netflix or whatever, and so these companies were just flooding the zone, making tons and tons of new shows and movies and stuff. And then the strikes happen, and the studios kind of like, well, studios, you know, they did what the studios do and they pushed back and they let everybody starve for a little bit. But this time, instead of just going back to work, they're like, oh yeah, by the way, we're just going to kind of shred everything and cut everything back. And so many, like I lost my job because of it, because the VFX company I was working for here in Albuquerque, they had to close their Albuquerque studio. Like they still exist, but they had to close their location here, and everybody got laid off. And I had the opportunity to move to Vancouver if I wanted to, but we thought we'd be okay with Melissa's work, but that, like, it seemed like she was going to be fine at first, but then it started to fall off more. And only recently has it been starting to pick up for me. Like I said, I just had that gig that I finished, and I've had a few other commercials that I've been working with, but I've been doing the freelance thing. I have not been a staff artist.
You kind of have to be, especially visual effects wise, because visual effects they're the ones that get treated like the dogs the most, in my opinion. Probably the post visual effects houses.
That's kind of the state of things in VFX, and it's been that way for a long time. Is that the only way you can get a raise is to just take your do your 3 months or 5 months or whatever the contract is, and then you go to the next place and you ask for more money, instead of what I did for the first whatever it was, like 8 years, 9 years. About 8-9 years that we were in Los Angeles, and I was everywhere I was at. It was like staff, like they liked me. I was good at what I did, but it was when you're staff, they're not like showering you with raises.
Yeah, no, I get that.
And you ask for one, and then it's like, we can't afford to do that, and it's frustrating. But now, hopefully, with maybe going the freelance route, I can kind of ratchet.
I think so. I think it would be a big help, especially because there's a lot of indie films that are still being made. And then also, it seems like a lot of the studios, as of late, maybe the last 5 years or so, have been pushing towards the direction of like making more for either buying indie films or making more studio indie films. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's that level. And which I don't think there's ever anything wrong with it. That was steady work for a long time for a lot of people in the studio. And honestly, I would say the more I look at it and the more I see the changes that are coming up, and like the studios kind of messing around. I mean, we got Paramount right now trying to buy up everybody they can. Netflix trying to buy up everybody they can. It's becoming one huge monopoly. I'm hoping that this Warner Brothers deal does not go through.
Yeah,
that would be nice, to continue more work. But do you see, in your opinion, now I don't expect you to know any answers right now on this, but like in your opinion, do you see the studios who are already massively in debt as it is slowing up? Do you see them lasting much longer in this if they keep this up?
Well, I don't know.
Bailouts.
It's America, so if they go under, we'll bail them out too. They're too big to fail. They're super rich. We got to make sure they stay that way. We don't help out the people who all got laid off during this period. But yeah, to get off my soapbox for a second, I don't know. It's like, the state of media is changing a lot. You have this kind of format. You have people are watching things on their phones all the time now, and you probably heard about the thing that Matt Damon and Ben Affleck were talking about with Netflix. That like,
the AI
expect you like every 5 minutes or whatever to
okay. What you're talking about, just for anybody who's listening, is in a script. I have been paying attention to this. It's funny you bring it up. That in a script, the basically the dialogue has to remind you of what the plot is every 5 to 10 minutes, so they'll somehow try and work it in.
It's just for the people who are watching a movie like this.
Which, I mean, with younger audiences, like
if you're watching a movie right now while watching this podcast, put your phone down. Watch the movie.
Watch the whole thing, right? Yeah, no, I agree with you. And like there are times I'm guilty of it too. Like I'm doing something on my phone and like listening.
I've done it too, sure. But I generally do it with like when I'm rewatching Community or Breaking Bad or something. It's like
it's like stuff I've watched a bunch of times before.
Yeah. Ever with a new movie.
when it comes to the, well, no, not with the new movie, because I usually have to review them. So like I have to take my notes, pay attention. But I do agree with you, and it's like something I've seen a few times. I might, but to kind of to your point though, and how they're writing the scripts and everything I've been paying attention to and like kind of learning about it. I don't know. I just look at that as inferior screenwriting. There's still, I mean, we're still going to get fantastic movies that are well written. Mm-hmm. They're few and far between these days. Because I think I think we're kind of disconnecting from the idea of films being art versus films being like almost like a love letter. A lot more film fans are taking the reins within the industry and stuff like that, and directing more and writing more. And when you see that, I feel like that's why we see a lot of films the way we do, where again, I don't dislike them or anything, but it's almost like they're paying homage to the past. They're trying to retell a certain story rather than come up with their own.
Yeah, they're reselling our nostalgia back to us. You know, like
they're trying. It's some hollow stuff.
The Master of the Universe, which I thought was a fun movie. I didn't hate it, but it does kind of it's. I remember thinking in the theater, I had that big kid grin on my face, like this is so silly. But also there was a little part of me that was like, oh, I remember when I was a kid and it didn't suck.
But I gotta disagree with you on especially on the He-Man thing. I walked out of there fully fulfilled by that movie.
Oh no, I don't mean the movie sucked. I mean like life, the world.
Oh yeah, fair. Once you walk back, it's any movie.
But I could just sit in front of the TV and watch He-Man.
Any movie you walk out of nowadays, you realize immediately it's like, oh, I'm back to reality.
Yeah,
I don't know what's going to happen.
Then we saw. I took my daughter to Backrooms.
The older one, I hope.
Yes, of course.
Because I just thought about that movie, and I'm like, that's a psychological mindfuck that you're bringing your kid to. My kid wants to see it too. Although he wants to watch The Long Walk next, and I'm like,
not sure. I don't know that one.
That's a Stephen King one. That one messed me up in high school, and that movie's messed. Do not show your kids that one. Maybe if you want to like give them an idea of the military, but it's not great. It's great. It's one of the best movies of last year, but I'm trying not to give anything away. But it's dismal, I guess. It really will drain you by the end of it. One of those things. But to that point, going back to the He-Man thing real quick, though, I'm talking about that. Like, that's a movie to me. Like, we were talking about Ben Affleck and Matt Damon. That script was a fine script. Mm-hmm. It gave everything I needed as somebody who grew up with He-Man, which I imagine I was the demographic you're going for, and maybe kids being introduced. Because I took my kid and my youngest, and he loved it. And so for me, I watched those. Like that to me is a fine movie that should be made. We need the popcorn as much as we need the deep, as much as we need the scary, anything else. And I'm fine with it as long as like the movie they're talking about with the Rip. They did earlier this year where they were in it, Ben Affleck and Matt Damon. They're talking about it. And that was one of those movies where every 5-10 minutes they had to kind of tell you what the plot was. But it didn't affect me, again, because I just never had that huge of a respect for dialogue. Dialogue's is always changing, depending on what you're watching or how they're playing into it. But I don't know. It's show, but as long as you're showing me, I'm fine. Just give me the dialogue, whatever. I don't want bad dialogue. I'll take mediocre, but I don't want bad. But I don't know. So I guess when I see that, I don't mind it because the people who are going to fall into it and don't do it well are going to fail anyway. So who cares? Like I don't have to worry about their movies a year from now. But then there are people who will deny it or go above it or whatever and create something really special. So I don't mind that a little bit of confrontation there. We've always had that with the studios. Where they have these demands and they have to meet them, and there's always a cleverness that sort of comes from the filmmaking. So I'm just waiting for the next bit of cleverness to come.
Yeah.
Now, if Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey tells me what's going on every 5 minutes, I might get a little annoyed because I don't expect that from him. But we'll see.
We'll see.
I don't know. He's the only one. Him and Denis Villeneuve are the only ones that are like making the epics anymore. Like truly epic films. Do you think that we can, as a visual effects artist, and like watching movies like the Dune series or anything Christopher Nolan does, Do you think that you have to tell these big elaborate stories still, or can we go back to the days of the epic where it's like a bigger than life situation, but it almost felt grounded? Like if you look at like The Bridge on the River Kwai or even like Lawrence of Arabia, there's something grounding about those very epic films in comparison to like a Ten Commandments. You know what I mean? Where it's very fantastical. I feel like now we get mostly just fantastical epics, heavy visual effects.
Okay, so if I'm understanding you correctly, I'm like you're saying like a movie, say like Oppenheimer.
Yeah, Oppenheimer's a good grounded one, but would you call that an epic?
Well, I don't know.
I'm not saying it isn't. I'm just wondering what you're feeling.
Yeah, I don't know. It was kind of grandiose. I don't know if I call it an epic because it's really following one man out of this. You know, there's a bigger story, but it's being told through the eyes of the one guy. And I don't know.
I guess I could compare it to something like a Lawrence of Arabia. Yeah, maybe a grounded epic is something that's on that level. That's a good point.
Yeah, it's not, and it wasn't. I mean, I didn't work on it. I don't, and movies have so many visual effects that you don't even realize are visual effects in them. But that was a movie where there wasn't a ton of spectacle. There were probably a ton of invisible effects all over the place, but you had the big bomb and everything, but it was not. It wasn't really. It wasn't like on the flip side with like Master of the Universe, where like everything was probably mostly green screen, and then they built the worlds around, and they look beautiful, but it's mostly visual effects. So I don't know. I don't really know how to answer your question, I guess.
So do you think the visual effects are something that make the epic feel more attainable?
Well, yeah, I guess the way I kind of look at visual effects is that they're a tool to help realize something fantastical, you know. Well, like you look at Titanic, you know, that had tons of visual effects work done in it.
Well, can I ask you to use maybe an example of something you've worked on? In this room, because you worked on like Game of Thrones and stuff, right?
I worked on a handful of shots in Game of Thrones, but it wasn't.
But that is in my opinion, like Lord of the Rings is an epic trilogy, right? Yeah. And so like to me, Game of Thrones is right up there on that level of epicness. Even if it's a grounded episode or something, you know, an episode down the line, you're gonna have a huge battle or something, or dragons or whatever. So, like, I guess in that scope, I'm asking you, did it feel like that, like when you worked on something like that?
So that it felt like
when you're working on it, it was like had to have this like. I guess I'm trying to figure out when you're doing the visual effects, like, because I'm trying to find the right way to ask this question. And let me throw another movie your way. So, like, when I watch Superman versus Game of Thrones, right?
There was a Superman versus Game of Thrones movie?
Yes, you missed it.
I would love to see that.
It's the best, dude. Like, he and the dragons go at it, and then they become friends because they're like, the dragons are like, he's just a really nice guy. And then he brings peace, and everybody's like happy. You know? It's like no more incest or anything. It's crazy. No. I was gonna say, so like when you watch Superman from like let's say last year, I can spot the visual effects there. Mm-hmm. You know, and I don't necessarily think that's bad. Like in Star Wars, I can spot the visual effects that are going on. Maybe not every little thing, because you've wowed me with some of your work, like where you're like, hey, so you take all this away and there's nothing there, and I'm like, you built all that? So for me, I guess when I talk about the epicness of something, like, does that set in when you're working on it? Like, so like when you work on Superman, you're like, this is a great movie, it's huge. Maybe they don't want I don't want to say they don't want as polished VFX, but the VFX in that movie seem more cartoonish than like in a Game of Thrones or a Lord of the Rings or something. That makes sense. Like when he punches somebody, you can tell it's a visual effect. But then you watch Game of Thrones and you're like, these dragons look real. These dragons look like they lived. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? So, well, like, what mindset do you walk in when you go into like these epic type of things that you have to work?
I mean, really, in VFX, the kind of the way we generally look at it is just like, what do you want and how do we realize it? You know, and so it's like we like to put our own little spin on things, but I mean, I guess I would say the first blockbuster kind of movie, big tentpole kind of movie that I worked on was Green Lantern.
I'm sorry.
The Ryan Reynolds one, and but I worked on the 3D conversion of it, and for me that was just awesome to be there, that because it was the first big thing that I was actually working on. So but it's like the story, whatever it is, it's there's a visual language that they're going for, and we just have to execute it. And so it's kind of like I don't know if there's any sort of I guess I'm not sure.
Well, let me ask you. Let's pivot a little bit because I like what you're saying, and I want to ask you another question. In the visual effects house, I'm brand new. I want to start out. I want to learn visual effects. I want to learn the hierarchy, how it works, like what the different positions are, things like that. Like, can you give us sort of a broad rundown of like how it normally works in terms of like the different jobs or departments that you see working on different things, just for anybody who's listening who may not understand it?
Okay, so I kind of run through.
And don't worry about the bosses, the ones who actually do the real work.
Yeah. Well, you got your director, obviously, in any movie has a director who's and some directors are kind of hands off. They just want to talk to the actors and get the performances out of them, and they're willing to let the production designer, art director, and VFX supervisor and the DP handle all the technical stuff. And they just want, they're like, they just want to get the story told, but they trust their department heads to execute, and they have some influence. Some guys, like I would say James Cameron, they're probably one of them, that is like very much wants to know exactly like every little detail. And well, but I don't want to go off on a tangent about the director, but the director then is usually working. There's typically a VFX supervisor who's like the top dog VFX supervisor, and that's the guy who's typically working directly with the director. And then that person will also be interacting if there's that person is working with working out of a VFX house themselves. They'll be kind of stationed there and working with that team, but there's almost always going to be outsourcing done, and they'll be working with the VFX supervisors in those locations to make sure that they're executing what needs to get done. So you have VFX supervisors, but there's sometimes a hierarchy of VFX supervisors on top of everything.
Yeah.
So, but then once you're at an individual house, you're talking about an individual house, you got the VFX supervisor that's in that location.
Does he just oversee, like, as soon as it all comes to the house, he's overseeing who's working on what?
They're overseeing the making sure that the team is executing what is expected from the VFX supervisor and the director that they're communicating with.
Okay.
And you'll have department heads. You'll usually have like a CG supervisor. That's usually a person who is overseeing almost like all of the 3D stuff, like this, the 3D rendering, Maya, Houdini, Blender, all these different software that we use, and they're kind of making sure that world is all coherent. And then you'll usually have a 2D supervisor or comp supervisor. It's the compositor. I'm a compositor.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell me a little bit more about like what a compositor is before we go?
Yeah, I was about to say a compositor is, so like I was saying, the CG world, they render out the transformer. The director's on set with the VFX supervisor, and they have the bar with the little ball on the end of it or something, and the actor's like, oh no, and then they film that plate, and we get the plate.
Mm-hmm.
The CG guys, there will be people they'll track the shot, like the camera's moving around, and they have computer software that can figure out, the camera's position in 3D space. So it'll create a scene for us to work with. They'll usually put in some geometry that matches up with objects in the scene. So we know, this building's over here, and there's a light post right here, stuff like that. And then you'll have your modelers that'll create the transformer, and riggers who will make the transformers arms move around and like all the little parts. That's one thing that was probably extremely complicated to rig, because there were so many little moving parts in those transformers in the Michael Bay movies. Every time I saw them,
real quick, when you're saying you're making that, can I'm just trying to associate and picture it in my head, but I do, when you have the wire frame of the character and you're building out the points for movement. Now, mind you, I don't know what I'm talking about. I know working knowledge, maybe, so you tell me. But is that what you mean? Like at that point, that's what they're working on, is sort of like the wire frame of like the character that they're building out or something?
Yeah, that's what the modelers are doing. They're building the mesh that the whatever the creature, it could be a dinosaur in Jurassic Park, or a robot in Transformers, or an alien in whatever. They model that thing, and they'll have them in this kind of like they'll be in this neutral position where they kind of look like they're floating in a tank of Bacta, and then the rigger will put bones in it, and it's depending on how the model is. Like in a robot, you might not use bones because you wouldn't want like with skin, your skin stretches and creases.
Just kind of a covering layer until you get to all the extra accoutrements, if you will.
Well, what they're doing is they're determining where the joints are going to be, and so the animator can there's I won't get into the way out into the weeds, but like an animator, they'll set this up. They'll build, the CG character's got his arm built, and then the animator will have like a handle that they can go, and they can move the arm, and like the other parts of the arm will move with it. And it's called the inverse kinematics. But so the riggers will make it so that whatever the thing is, it will move naturally the way you would kind of expect it to move.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and so then the animators will animate the thing, and they'll have the whatever it is running around, smashing a building or whatever. And then you'll have texture artists. They're the ones who are actually like painting on the thing. And a lot of this all has analogs back to the analog days when they were doing this kind of stuff with stop motion photography. Because in like the spaceships and Star Trek, Star Wars, you had people that was like their dedicated job is painting the ship, making it look like a real spaceship, or painting the dinosaur to make it look like it was a real living creature.
True art. True art.
Yeah, and you have texture artists that skin the thing, that put the look of what it's supposed to look like. Shading artists, the Transformers, they had all of these parts that were parts of cars, so they have like car paint kind of look to them. There's glass panels and mirrors and all the kinds of things you'd see in a car, right? And all those are virtual textures that are built in the computer. The computer has a lighting model, and then you after all of that, you have lighting. There's layout, but lighting is sort of like it's just putting.
You got to have the right lighting to go with the shot, of course.
Yeah, and you gotta match the lighting of the scene where you shot it. Like sun. If the sun's in the background, it's you got to have a sunlight shining on your CG character so that it looks like it's really there. And through, and then there's effects. And say that Transformer smashes, a hole in a wall. The FX people will they'll create, usually in like Houdini, but there's a lot of other software that you can do stuff like this. But you have your CG wall that's been built, and they'll do simulations where it all breaks apart. The fist runs through it, and it all smashes apart and comes apart into a bunch of pieces. And all of that culminates in a render. They render out those parts, and the compositor will receive that. So I will get that plate that they filmed on set, and then I get that CG transformer, and I marry the two together. Like I put the transformer into the scene. You're going to have roto artists who, if they did stuff with green screen. Usually, I'm tasked with doing green screen keying and stuff. But we'll have roto artists. A lot of places have teams of roto artists they're taking splines, and there's lots of tools to help them. But essentially, what they're doing is they're making a shape, like a vector shape, Bezier splines that will follow the objects in the foreground to give you a matte. And this is the kind of thing, again, that has analog in the old days. Rotoscoping was literally people were painting on single frames of film, like the lightsabers in Star Wars. Those were painted by hand.
Oh, really?
They didn't have the digital effects to do like now it's really like I could do it on my computer here. But
yeah, I imagine most people at home do it, right?
In those days, you had to have people who were it was a technical art, of being able to paint the thing, and specifically in Star Wars, there were some tricks that they tried to use. I believe that like Obi-Wan's lightsaber was like a tube that had kind of reflective material on it that was like spinning around, so it kind of did some of it in camera. And like Tron did a lot of stuff in camera because they had like retro reflectors all over them, and then like a heads up kind of camera, or the light on the camera, a headlight.
So like, and you're talking about 1982 Tron, right?
Yeah,
because I remember the close-up phase. It's almost like a precursor to like the Iron Man, sort of like having the
heads up.
Yeah. Just when he's in the mask. I'm not saying that it's exact, but it kind of reminds me of that.
Yeah, and well, I mean, going back to like those movies, those movies where it's crazy what they were able to pull off the hard way, and what we can do nowadays, and what they were pulled off back then. But so yeah, there's paint. That guy who I mentioned before is holding the pole with the ball on the end. It's like, this is where the transformer is. He's got to get painted out. So there's paint artists who will. There's all kinds of tricks and techniques for how this is done, but essentially, again, is what they're doing is they're filling in. They're sort of recreating parts of the scene and masking that person out and making it look like they were never there in the first place. And I'm baffled by some of the things these paint artists can pull off, because I've received paint in some shows where they painted out whole people from a shot, and I'm like, how did you manage to do this? This looks perfect. It's crazy. But anywho, all of those elements, I'm sort of the last one who gathers up all of these. I get all of those assets dumped on me, and I put it all together into a final shot. So then after my contribution, it'll go to grade, and they might tweak color in some stuff. But generally, once I've completed it, that's what you end up seeing in the movie or TV show that I would have worked on. And so all of these people are answering. There's a bit of a hierarchy, but a lot of it's pretty linear. It's like there's teams of artists, and a lot of plays. One thing I definitely I judge a VFX company by whether the team leads and the supervisors are actually doing work themselves. And when I was working at Crafty Apes, I was amazed at the number of times where I was working with a VFX artist or VFX, not a VFX supervisor, but like a department head, or sometimes the supervisor himself, like the guy who we worked with. They're actually doing comps themselves, and they're doing the hero comp, which is sometimes you'll have a sequence of shots. Say something really simple like a driving scene, like you got a camera pointed to one character and a camera pointed to the other character, maybe a camera looking out towards the front, one looking at both of them, looking out the back. And you'll have a whole sequence of these shots where characters talking in a car while they're driving. And it's all on green screen. There's no background. There nothing. We have to replace all of that.
How much leeway do you get to replace it, or is there a lot of notes to say, hey, like I want
there's
this?
usually they've picked out like they want this to be the background. And nowadays actually a lot of they've done rear projection for a really long time. It's actually one of the early visual effects tricks that they used in movies. And one of my absolute favorite rear projection one is in Superman when Superman flies away from Lois Lane's apartment, and he's like, you know, see you later or whatever, and then he flies away, and then she walks inside, and she hears a knock at the door, and it's Clark. And so Christopher Reeve's in two places in two different costumes. How could this be? Because it's done with rear projection. He wasn't really there. It was a rear projection of him standing on the ledge and flying away. So he wasn't actually there. Christopher Reeve is dressed up like Clark Kent at the front door.
I am going to push you over because there's an easy way to do that too. You call cut, and then he changes and he goes to the front door.
No, it's continuous.
No, it just says, I do know when she's walking in off the balcony, it's all windows, and he's flying away as a knock comes on the door, and she opens it. I do remember. I'm joking with you. It is interesting how they play it off. No, for sure. And I did love the rear projection, and honestly, that's how it achieved the flight.
Aliens has a good one too. When the dropship crashes, that's rear projection.
Okay, I didn't know that. I'm going to need to rewatch that.
They did that all in miniature, so the thing tumbling and exploding and everything. That is a big rear projection in the background, and they're all running from it like, oh shit, it's coming for us, and it's flawless, it's perfect. And that's James Cameron was formerly a visual effects artist before he got into directing. He was a math.
Well, no, it's funny. You know what he was before that, and he worked on Escape from New York. Well, all right, after the Trucker. Oh no, he was a paint artist.
Yeah, he was a matte painter.
Yeah, he would do the matte paintings on. And it's so funny you mention it because I was watching Helen of Troy from 19.
Which is one of the ones I forgot. I forgot to mention that role.
Matte painting is amazing. They're such great, and you can see them, especially when you figure it out. But back in the day, I was explaining it to Jack, and we were watching Helen of Troy, and when they're when they're at Troy, and Paris is like racing to get into the gates, you see it far off, and you see a dirt road lead up, and then you see Troy there fortified. And I looked at him and I go, that's all painting. He goes, I was like, just that road where he is driving, I was like, everything in the background is a painting. He's like, how they do it? And I'm like, I had a ball telling him, it's like, oh, they had a big window. Then you would paint it here and here, and then they would match it up and line it up. Yeah, and I showed him some back behind the scenes features.
Yeah, Star Wars used those. Yeah, they had some matte paintings where they had the
most did. Like, I mean, I think people really, if you go back and watch a lot of those classics, especially I'd say pre 85, I'd say 85 is really where visual effects started to turn. Not saying it wasn't happening up until that point, but I think like once you got 85 gave us a lot of movies, like 84, 85 gave us Ghostbusters, it gave us Nightmare on Elm Street, it gave us Back to the Future, which you couldn't really get away with tricks. Like a lot of these had to be done in post. So I think that was like sort of like a big surge that pushed that way. But I do miss the old school matte paintings. Like some of them were flawless.
And that's one of the things that I really love about old movies that did visual effects kind of stuff was they were so limited. They couldn't do everything with a computer. And now it's not to trivialize what we do, but it's so much easier. That was one of the things that I think it kind of harms visual effects now when they have too much freedom to do whatever they want, and they don't leave it grounded. Like my one of the things I loved was the TV show Firefly when they made so many of the shots where they're like looking up at a ship or whatever. They made it look like, they used reference of like air shows to give it that look. And that's why you'd get those like it was sort of like the camera was searching for it. Oh, there it is, and then it would do like a kind of a swish pan or smash zoom to kind of zoom in on it. Like it's there it is, and it's but giving it that feeling like it was actually a camera operator on the ground who was filming the Serenity, you know, and I prefer that kind of thing where you don't just we're not just going to have the camera swoosh around and do whatever random things we want. Gravity did that too.
It makes it feel tangible.
Yeah, and even in Gravity, they went to the point where they added a fake cameraman holding, you know, in a spacesuit holding a camera, and you can catch glimpses and reflections of the cameraman in the movie. But it was like the camera had to have a place. It wasn't like we're just going to move around wherever we want. It's like this camera has to feel like it's a real camera where, you know, wherever it has to be.
I think we lose a lot of just to kind of jump on your point there. I think especially when we talk about visual effects, and we were talking about lighting earlier, but just how important all of this going into the visual effects is, but like the camera movements, the work, and how that has to be coordinated and such. And especially when we talk about those epic, and more so now, and I keep bringing up epics and kind of going back to them and what we're seeing in today's world, is because those are the ones that are really, I feel like, not only have the best VFX going right now, but also they're so grounded because the story and the way that it's being shot and filmed by all these like auteur filmmakers. So like when I'm talking about these epics and stuff, like we're seeing like the Odyssey's coming out, we've seen Interstellar and things like that. I feel like there's something like, even when it's nothing, you know that spaceship's not real in Interstellar. You realize that the planets aren't there. It's not actual space. There's no black hole, but it feels tangible compared to some of those others. Like when Star Wars, when that ship comes into frame in the beginning, you feel like it's real. And I grant that that's a model, and I understand that is a little more tangible than just building it out of nothing. But the camera work, but also with the visual effects having to be around it to make sure that it looks like it's really in space and such. It's just a beautiful art form that I feel like doesn't get enough respect. You know, compositors should deserve so much respect, except for you. You deserve it. But, you know, mostly everybody else, so they're great. But
yeah. Well, one of the problems that happened, I think, the way I see it, is that there was a kind of a period where sometimes VFX was a little too ambitious. That it was like, oh look, Steven Spielberg did with Jurassic Park. We could totally make a little reptilian thing in Mortal Kombat, or you know, make Spawn's cape. You know, it's like then it was like they started kind of doing things just because they could, and they didn't look right. They didn't look good.
I agree, but at the same time, what did it lead to? Because I feel like that's still progress always pushing. Because if you go back and watch The Matrix and the bullet time, none of it looks real. Like him bending over, he doesn't look real. He looks like a cartoon before the time.
But that, I think, looks sufficiently real. I mean, like...
Oh, I hard disagree. I think that looks like Woody Woodpecker in a black coat.
When he's, like, leaning back to dodge the bullets?
Yes.
Because it is real.
No, I realize that, but not always. Not every close-up shot and like there are visual effects that go into it, and it doesn't... Like, I understand, like, he's bent backwards, but you know the difference between, again... how much of that is going into the visual effects? Those bullets don't look real. He may be backwards. None of it looks real, like as it's coming in, comparatively to today. What I'm saying is, in 1999, when we watched it, we're like, "That's amazing." But they weren't pulling off any better effects than the Mission Impossible movies, in my opinion.
Oh, okay. Well,
I love that. I love it. Yes, I see your face. Debate me.
Well, I don't know where to go with that. I'm just
because they're roughly around the same time. They're big action projects being worked on.
But what I was getting at is that there started to become a reputation for when visual effects are done bad, like or not done as well as they could be. If you ever see a bad visual effect,
I just told you one.
Our fault. The director signed off on it.
No, I told you. The Matrix.
What?
The Matrix with all their bad visual effecs.
What do you mean?
No, I'm fucking with you. You're just so easy to fuck with.
Well, there's actually a roto hit there's like a mat cut out in one frame that we noticed because we were working on bidding to do a 3D conversion of the Matrix movies. That didn't happen.
Maybe you would have improved some of that. No. Listen, the first Matrix movie did it way better than even the sequels did.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
well, the sequels had a lot of ambition too. But anyway, what I was getting at was the reason that they push so much to say everything's practical. It's not visual effects, even though it still is. There's still tons of visual effects that are being done in these movies and TV shows. But there were times where they would do things that just it wasn't, you know, like
I know what you mean, and I'm not trying to step on you. My point to what I was saying, joking about the Matrix and stuff and kind of making fun of it, is by today's standards it doesn't look as good, but it is inspired so much. Yeah, and I think that's what, like, when we talk about Spawn's cape, let's go back to that. Let's get off the Matrix.
Well, anyway,
no, just shut up. Let me finish. Let me get my point out. This is what happens when you're talking to friends. So, yeah, I think about Spawn and his cape in that movie, and it looks so CGI. It doesn't have this Jurassic Park money. It looks weird. But what I'm saying is, I think when you take steps like that, and certain movies are really like plugging into something, like if Jurassic Park, let's use that as an example, creates this huge burst in visual effects in the 90s, right? Mm-hmm. And we get something like Spawn, and it feels rushed and it doesn't feel as good, or not enough money, or the artist just wasn't there. But then you get and to kind of compare it to, then you get Doctor Strange's cape, which essentially does the same function, right? Mm-hmm. You know, moves on its own and whatever, and it looks realistic, and you can see the thread count, you can see everything that goes into it. I guess what I'm saying is, I don't so much mind when you see bad CGI in the early days show up, because look what it's led to. Sure, but what my point was going to be... No, that was my point. I want to hear your point too. I'm just telling you what my point was. Okay, but what I was ultimately getting at is that the audience blames us for bad VFX. Well, listen, that, first of all, the audience blames everybody for everything. But okay, but there have been many times that producers and directors have kind of seemed to take that on, that, oh, we have to do less visual effects because the visual effects, those artists aren't good enough to do this. And it's like, just that audiences seem to have been there were periods where people felt like, oh my gosh, this is another CGI fest, you know. And it's like, well, we're not the reason that it looks bad. You know, it's when the direct, it's like Jaws had the big shark, but the shark didn't work. You know, it when it got wet, it would get too heavy, it couldn't move. They could only use it for, you know, a couple minutes at a time. And it forced the movie to show far less of the shark, and it turned out better. Yeah. But if that movie had been made like 20 years later, and Steven Spielberg was able to make the shark in CG and show as much of the shark as he wanted all the time, it might have made a lesser movie. And if it landed in the right era, the shark maybe looked terrible, and the audiences would be like, oh, this isn't even scary because the shark looks like shit, you know. And well, let me ask you this question then, comparative to visual effects that, you know, maybe it's you're creating everything in a scene or a shot, versus there's been a lot of practical effect use and you're filling in sort of like gaps, or creating certain things in the visual effects but to match the practical effects going on. What do you prefer? What do you think works better? Is if you can coordinate in that way where they do have as many practical effects and you can kind of like fill in where you need to, or? Well, I just like making stuff look cool, you know, and the more practical stuff they put into the scene, I think helps the actors do better, because they're in a tangible area, even if it's just like, oh, there's some dirt on the ground and there's a couple rocks and a tree, but everything else is green screen. At least they kind of can get a sense of what they're looking at. And they're, you know, like now, like with
Planet of the Apes and Avatar and Lord of the Rings and King Kong, you have like the Andy Serkis things being done with motion capture. They're these actors and performers, they get it. Like they can't see that there's a big magical tree there or whatever, but they can imagine it and they can kind of get a sense of it. But being able to have that tree that physically there so they can put their hand on it instead of pretend that they're holding their hand out, those kinds of things, those little details, it's like it makes it so I don't have to deal with something and it makes it look better.
Yeah.
But if that tree is some kind of wild, amazing, magical looking, like it's ice or something, and we couldn't really make a real ice.
You shut your mouth. You know that the art directors can do that.
Well, they probably could make a practical.
Just depends if the money's there.
Acrylic, yeah. But like say the magic is failing and the thing crumbles. It's got to shatter into a million pieces, and then you need us. One of the things that they do, they did it like Zodiac is a really good example of all of the blood spatter that you see in that movie is CG or VFX because they didn't want to have to do a take like they do a take and then they have to go and clean up all the blood and reset everything back to one and clean everything up, and they just wanted to be able to go back and do another take right away, so they didn't do any practical blood spatter anywhere. Now, they could have gone nuts with it and had like gallons of CG, simulated blood splattering all over the place. But they kept it grounded in reality. Like, the victim gets shot and there's a little bit of blood spatter that just, it's subtle. It's subtle. It's just enough to give you the sense that this murder took place, right? The Zodiac has tons of invisible effects in it that I can
imagine. I wouldn't mind watching that with you and actually having you point them out because I love seeing that. And is that something you like to do? Like when you watch other movies, you start like looking for certain effects that maybe nobody else would really see to the eye.
I like when I can't tell if something is a visual effect or not. Because there's times when I'm like, I know that's a visual effect, but it was really well done. I can tell that was not done practically, but they did a really good job with it and made it look to my eye like that could have been something real. It's just awesome. It's not really feasible to actually do that in reality. But I really like it when I can't tell.
I love it. That's a great.
How they do that.
How they can trick you like that too. Like I remember we were watching, and you got me kind of on it. We were watching Darby O'Gill and the Little People once, and you were like, "Wow, visual effects wise, this is like pretty astonishing." Like how they pulled everything off.
Which one?
It was 1950s. Darby O'Gill and the Little People. They had a reverse, not a reverse shot.
The forced perspective kind of thing?
No, they had a lot of forced perspective, but it was the Banshee shot, and the Banshee was I forget how they pulled it off. You were like, I really like how they pulled it off, and then like you looked it up immediately. So like that always like impressed me that you were. I can't remember exactly how they did it, but it is a good shot. So if you ever get a chance, I'd love to know your take on it.
It's not the one now I'm thinking of, but I don't think
it's like a carriage with horses, and there's a Banshee in it, and it's running at the person. It goes right through them, and like just for the 50s, like it's just really hard to figure out how they did some of these shots, and like it is known for its visual effects in the movie.
I'd have to see it because I don't.
No, that's what I'm saying. I would love to see what your thoughts on it if you get a chance to watch it again and see what you can pick up on there, like what was visual effects, especially early days Disney. I feel like Disney ushered in a lot of that. I've got a question from Grandizer. What's up, Grandizer? Can Joe Laude cite which 3 movies he can say, which movies that he could not tell?
I could not tell, like an example of something where I couldn't tell. I'd have to think about it.
Think about it for a bit. You know what? While we're thinking about that, why don't we kick it off with our top 5 favorite VFX shots in sci-fi movies? So this is real easy. We have our top 5. We're going to go down starting from 5 all the way down to 1, and we'll just trade off. So I'll go first, then you go, and then we'll keep going. All right. Number 5 on my list, and this is, again, now I'm not saying that any of these are the best shots in visual effects ever, but they're some of my favorites. And this is Pirates of the Caribbean, Curse of the Black Pearl, when they're fighting in the caves, and he stabs Jack Sparrow and falls into the light, and you see he's dead. And just the transition and the turning that they did with those bodies, like, so insane. It was so fast. Like, it's visual effects that I stick with me all the time.
Those are the Pirates movie, especially the first one, and a lot of the stuff they did in 2 and 3 were really innovative, crazy things that they did, like the Maelstrom. They did some wacky stuff with. I
would love to see the whirlpool, how they created the whirlpool scene, just with everything going on with it. I need to watch the behind the scenes.
You should check out. There's a behind the scenes where they did the sim for the big whirlpool, and but then they needed, because the ships were in there, kind of circling around each other, and they needed to have a trail from the ship that's going through the Maelstrom. And so what they did, and to get the wake of the ship, is they used the displacement, that is the kind of the distortion of the geometry of the Maelstrom itself, and applied it to the ship. So the ship, instead of being like a flat boat, it was all like weight, cool. like water. And then they had a flat plane, and then they had the ship move through the plane to generate a wake that was all kind of distorted the way the ship.
I like it.
Apply that distortion to the Maelstrom. It's crazy, the kinds of like innovation that they do to come up with some of that stuff.
There are some things, like when I talk about being a filmmaker, and I tell people, I'm like, yeah, I'm not talented enough to pull that off. If you told me to direct something, and you're like, you should direct the Odyssey, we're going to give you everything Christopher Nolan had. I'm not talented. I have some skills. You'll get a shot, and it'll be the easiest shot that there possibly can. Like, it'd be like the picture of the dog just sitting there. That's my shot, and it still wouldn't be lit right. Well, it depends.
I'm gonna give one to the answer for before, because
save that to the end. What's your number 5? Let's do that, because I want to continue on with that conversation.
I'll come back to that. Hopefully I'll think of all 3 by the time we get to the end. My 5. So my 5, I'm looking at. I'm going chronological. I'm not picking an order.
That's fine.
Okay. So my number 5 is Star Wars, 1977.
Nice. No, just only go one by one.
No, just the one. But because of how there's so much VFX stuff that had been done and touched on here and there, and then that movie brought all of those ideas together and tricked us into thinking that these spaceships were real, and the number of different things that they put into the movie. Then this is prior to the special editions. The one thing I love that I didn't know about until many years after I got into this kind of stuff, but the shot when the X-Wing's about to go into the trench in Star Wars.
Yeah, gotcha.
There's these flashes, right? And the first 2 flashes, you're looking at a matte painting. It's flat. But
yeah.
And so you're flying into a matte painting, and those flashes hide a cut from where it cuts from the big matte painting to show a huge swath of the Death Star, and then it cuts to the miniature. And it's perfect, and it cuts into the miniature, and now suddenly we're in. It's those kinds of things that they did in that movie, and
it's
later movies.
Yeah, it's a great pull.
Thinking you're seeing just putting it all together in your head, and
I primarily stuck with visual effect shots, not special effect shots, because I don't know all of them. So like mine are probably more rudimentary in this list than yours are, because you get it. Like you know, like you said, you look for it. Me, I'm either that's visual effect or I'm mostly pleasantly surprised. You know what I mean? But let's move on to number 4. Number 4 for me is Independence Day, but it's actually the beginning when the ships undock and they go into Earth and you see them coming through over each city through the clouds and stuff. I love the reactions that we're getting from the people, and especially something that massive and huge to show up over the city, and like when Will Smith's standing outside and it's just like there by the Hollywood sign. Like I love that look. I love everything that went into that. So like that's my number 4.
So my 4 is Back to the Future 2.
Okay.
Because of like the first movie actually does not have a whole ton of visual effects shots in it. Like it's got some stuff in there, but it's not a hugely visual effects reliant movie.
I think you need to leave now.
But 2 has tons of visual effects in it.
Yeah.
And it pioneered all kinds of stuff that it's like we take for granted nowadays, like the motion control cameras that enabled the camera to move around, and for Michael J. Fox to play 3 different characters in the same scene, and and Doc being able to talk to his old self, and for Jennifer to be able to encounter her older self, and all of this stuff. It's that they took old tech and they moved it, they brought it into the future and added
Back to the Future.
Yeah, Back to the Future. And one other detail that I love is is when the DeLorean lands. There's that shot where the DeLorean comes and flies in and it lands. But what they did is they put a board underneath.
So it shakes when it comes down.
It would bounce.
Yep, I love that. It seems so real when it does that.
Yeah, and this I was debating whether to do this or Roger Rabbit, because Roger Rabbit created this. There's a saying in visual effects called "bump the lamp" because of the scene in Roger Rabbit when they literally bump the lamp, and that made it so that the animators had to have that light go up and down.
Yep.
Roger Rabbit, that whole scene. And so, but those kinds of details where that you just sweeten it a little bit to add to ground it a little bit more in a practical thing, and seeing it like bounce just a little bit as it's coming in for a landing is. Really
it does, and it's such a fine detail. That's so much. They add in just a nice, beautiful little piece of nuance to that car, especially in its flight. Oh, I love that pick. That's such a great pick. Number 3 for me is the Minority Report fight scene where they're using the egret onto the jetpack. It's so seamless how the whole thing plays out. You don't feel like it's all wire work and such.
Which scene?
When he's fighting, when they're coming to capture him, he jumps out the not the window, the thing, and he catches onto the dude who has the jetpack. And they're fighting in the alley, and he's like going up and down, and he's fighting the other guys with. Like, it's so seamless, and it's hard to tell that's wire work.
That movie, I love the visual effects in that movie. There's so many things. And another one I love in that one, this is the kind of nerdy detail that it's not really specifically to do with the VFX, but because it takes place in Washington, D.C., there's actually like a statuette in D.C. that no building can be taller than the Washington Monument. So they wanted to make this big, like, beautiful metropolis, and somebody pointed out, like, you couldn't build these buildings in DC. So like the actual parts of DC, everything is still below that height. They designed everything so it would follow the real code, building codes of Washington.
That's Spielberg for you, though. He loves his details. What you got for number 3?
Jurassic Park.
Oh, my favorite. I love it.
Because that was a movie that was a breakthrough there's something, it's like there's only like a couple dozen CG shots or visual effects shots the whole movie or something. There's really not that many, but it's mixed, it's blended together with practical stuff so much. You see a dinosaur up close, and then he cuts and it's just like a puppet, but it works. It all tricks your mind into thinking that it's all real.
And rest in peace, Sam Neill.
Yes.
It's a great pick for 3. And I not going to say any more on it right this second. So going on to number 2. Number 2 for me is Interstellar, the Black Hole Gargantua. I was just watching again the other day because we're going to be reviewing it this weekend. And just the scope of that whole movie just in general. But like when they are at the black hole and that ship and everything that's going into it and how they get sucked in and how they play, it's orgasmic level visual effects. It really is. And I love it.
And that one spoke to the nerd in me because it was based on the real physics of what a black hole would look like if you could see one. And they even it really should be brighter on one side, because if it's supposed to be a spinning black hole, which means that it would have basically launched more light coming from the direction of the spin. But they didn't like the asymmetry of it, and they thought the audiences would think that's weird, so they just made it symmetrical.
So they tricked us then.
Yeah, they lied to us.
They lied to us. You know what? I will say though, I was explaining to my son because he was like asking questions about time dilation from when we watched that movie. Naturally, when you're 9, you have a lot of questions about why it was so different. So like talking to him about it in my rudimentary way, but just explaining it's like when he wrote this script, he wrote a story, a true narrative with those plot points, and they match perfectly, because he was like, he never got to see her when he was the same age. And I was like, yes, he did. They were both 120 years old at the end. I was like, it's just, but that's the time dilation that comes through. And he goes, oh, that's right. And that made him, and just the fact that you did that math to get to the end, so they could, to meet that point that they could meet at the same age. That was a promise he made her, and they did. And oh my God, that movie is amazing. Anyway, what's your number 2?
My number 2 is Starship Troopers, because
really RoboCop almost made my list.
Well, the insectoids, the critters.
They look good.
Amazingly well done. It's crazy to me how well it holds up.
They are well done, but I don't, in my opinion, in some scenes they're not lit right.
That may be the case.
That's my only argument from them. They look cool, they look realistic. The way they interact with the humans, the other actors. The big blob smart bug is the only one that looks. It has a little bit of CG curse to it still, but that one even had that might be the one I'm thinking of.
Practical close up one.
I will say when the wave comes, when they're outside in a bright, shiny day, when that wave comes of bugs, they look sick. It look like they are so well done. But the space battles, they do leave a little bit when the visual effects they don't bother me. Like it's not like, I mean, first of all, who am I to say anything? But but I do notice them more than I do with the bugs, which is interesting.
Well, and I'll come back to this because that just made me think of.
If you got an honorable mention, throw an honorable mention up there. I got one.
Well, it has to do with the spaceships in Starship Troopers. We can come back.
All right. I do have an honorable mention before I get to number 1, and my honorable mention is the Two Towers. Anything with the Lord of the Rings was amazing, but the Two Towers, the battle scene, I know we always go to it, but it just looked real, it tracked real. You know, them coming down the hill, like it didn't look silly, it didn't look stupid. I really just enjoyed that. I love that whole scene and everything that plays out. That would have been on my list. But my number 1 is actually ends up being Jurassic Park. It was the scene that inspired me to want to become a filmmaker. And that was when you see the Brachiosaurus for the first time. It just, I realize that's a personal thing. Like maybe it's not the best visual effects in history, but I really feel like that is a scene that just nailed down in people's hearts and minds when they saw it for the first time. Like, wow.
It's an oh wow moment.
It's a wow moment.
Like seeing the Death Star is another one.
Yeah.
Giving it a sense of
Superman
scale,
flying.
Yeah,
100%. Like that's a list. We should get you back on, and we'll put together a top 5 list of the effects that are like the oh wow moments.
Okay,
it's a lot though because there's so many. I might even dig deep into the classic films, the Cecil B. DeMille's and stuff when they really went at it with the visual effects. But yeah, no, honestly. But what's your number 1? I can't.
My number 1, as I said, I was going chronologically. So my number 1 is Avatar, because of how much went into realizing Pandora and how incredibly realistic it all looks. And actually, I'm gonna add that to my list and for the 3. So not do you want me to talk about Avatar first, or I mean,
you can please.
There's so many things in Avatar, and actually this will just lead into the 3 that I from the question that we got. Avatar and the 2 sequels so far I know most of it is CG, but I know some of it is practical, and there is so often I'm looking at it and I can't tell where the real stuff begins and where the CG ends. You know, there's so much stuff in that I'm like I can't tell. Like I know it's probably, you know, I'm like, here's where I can't tell. I know it's over here, but like you got me this far into like not sure, you know, like
nice.
And so yeah, the Avatar movies, really there are a lot of times where I'm, you know, again like the Na'vi, I know they're all fake, but the skin textures on them, just I'm like amazed that they were able to pull that off to make them look.
Well, I think it's important to mention that suspension of disbelief has to play a part into any movie you watch. And I get what you're saying. Like when you watch Avatar, it for the most part is a cartoon. Essentially, when you think about it from the animation of like everything in an animated movie is a cartoon. You know, it's part of a cartoon. And I feel like when you say cartoon, it downplays things. I'm not trying to do that. But basically, when you watch that, it's all animation. You're basically watching an animated film for the most part.
For most parts.
The beauty of Avatar is it's not. It's not. These actors are there in a way. It's the technology that went into it that creates this world. So I don't look at it as, when I watch a movie like that, especially those movies which ushered new technology into the industry and how important that was. So when I look at those, like to me, it's like, yeah, I realize that most of this was made, but most of this feels very tangible.
Yeah.
And that's where I can just suspend disbelief and say, all right, like I'm lost in this world. This feels real because they put that work in, you know?
So the second one that I was thinking of earlier is Starship Troopers with the spaceships, because the spaceships were practical. They were miniatures. It's one of the last movies that did big. Well, until now, there's kind of a renaissance of doing miniature spaceships and stuff. But that was one of the last big movies that had miniature ships in it. And I actually kind of thought it was CGI. But they were miniatures. They were done practically. Actually, that reminds me of another one. Now that I think about it, in Alien Resurrection, and I remember this comes up because they came out around the same time, the Starship Troopers and Alien Resurrection. There's a scene in where one of the Xenos is swimming, and they're kind of like, you know, swimming through water, and I thought it was CG, but it's real.
Oh, really?
I
know what you're talking about.
It's a full bodysuit, and they were doing it. They did that like practically.
I'm going to say this: as much hate as Resurrection gets, and I'm not saying it doesn't deserve it. It looked like there's some very cool effects that go on in that movie. And it's, you know, it's proto Firefly. So there you got the Joss Whedon dialogue in there, and true.
Love that. Yeah.
It's just it's a special movie in my opinion in terms of its visual effects and the technical prowess that went into it.
But the one other one that I was going to say before was going back to Zodiac.
Yes.
The shots where we're looking down at the car as it's driving around. I remember in the theater wondering how they got the camera up there to follow the car.
It's visual effects.
What?
It's all visual effects. It's all made up.
All CG. It's all CG. It's not even
that one. I did know.
Camera around and just the car is CG. The whole thing was CG.
Yeah, because they wanted to rebuild the town where he was and when it happened, as it looked like.
Yeah,
and
it
does not take away from me because it matches so beautifully when they're out of the car and they're walking around and at the scene. Yeah, that's a great pull. Yeah. And I'm not saying I noticed that. I knew it because I've watched the hell out of the behind the scenes features on that one.
I remember thinking in the theater, wondering how they got the camera to stay up there and track the car so well.
Now it'd be a drone.
It's like, what?
Now it would be a drone.
Now it would be a drone. Sure. Yeah. But yeah, that was one where it completely fooled me. It made me think that we were looking at something real and I came to find out later that it was entirely CG.
Looks real. Yeah. 100% looks real. All right. Let's see what questions we got before we get out of here. Grandizer says, I wanted Mick Manhattan to direct the sequel to Battle Beyond the Stars. I would have, but again, no talent. And that's why, because it's great visual effects film. Actually, it is. There's a lot of great visual effects in Battle Beyond the Stars. And I do think it's one you should check out for sure. He brings up the Disney's Black Hole was a big visual effects movie for him. That was for you too.
Yep. I love the Black Hole. Every time I hear, they're going to make a remake of the Black Hole, I'm like, but because around when Tron Legacy came out, they had him. They were going to have him do the director of that. He was going to do a remake of the Black Hole, but it's just been in development hell. I mean, we've never done it. And I got to meet Robert Forster. You know about that?
Yes, I do. I told my son that when we watched the Black Hole about a month ago.
Yeah, I actually met him twice.
I was like, Uncle Joe. Well, no, I know. I was like, well, Uncle Joe watched this movie with the guy who's in it. And he goes, the robot? And I was like, no, Joe was the robot.
Oh, of course, yes, 2001. I was gonna. I did.
It was close to being on there. And stop motion animation effects. If we we may need to do an episode on that. I love stop motion.
Yes, like and RoboCop had some
such good ones.
Talk
about the old Harryhausen movies.
The dinosaurs of Jurassic Park before Steve Harlan. No, it's Steve Williams, Harlan Williams' brother, Stephen Williams. He's the guy who was working. He created the T-Rex walk cycle, and
very nice.
He's like the reason that the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park were CG. That's kind of a funny story. You can probably look it up, but actually, I think it's in one of the movies that made us or something somewhere. He talks about it that he actually kind of sandbagged the VFX supervisor because they were like, no, we're gonna do this. We're gonna do this with the stop animation. Don't worry about that walk cycle thing. And then they had, when I think it was Kathleen Kennedy and some other people, the producers were coming into the studio, so they were gonna see some tests of the what do they call it? What was it? Well, the stop motion dinosaurs. But across the hall, he set up a computer that showed the CG walk cycle and caught their eye. And what's this? And then they go over there and look at it. And I think it was Dennis Murin, I think, was the supervisor, the VFX supervisor. I can't remember, but he was kind of pissed. He rocked the boat like that. But yeah,
listen, you can't rock the visual effects boats because they get mad at you. I'll tell you that. You should do that better. It doesn't look right.
Well, we try to do that. But nowadays, I have a friend who's Emmy nominated for Star Trek Voyager and Battlestar Galactica. And back in those days, he was down the hall from the director, particularly on Battlestar Galactica. He could actually go and talk to the writers and directors of the show and be like, wait, what if we did it this way? And they'd be like, you know what? That's a good idea. And it'll look cooler. And so he got to give that kind of feedback to them.
I love that.
Nowadays.
Which you should. You should.
Yes.
100%. A visual effects supervisor should be somebody who is as respected as a cinematographer, as the sound designer, as your production designer, all your heads. That's a lead. I'll never understand, and kind of go on a little bit of a tangent before we answer the last question. I from the outside perspective looking in, we are a visual effects medium in the film industry. We are. I don't care what you say. Now, almost every film is made with visual effects in some way. It plays a part. So if it plays that huge of a part, to not understand the importance of having a visual effects supervisor that is a department head that should be on set, who can see what's going on. And this, I'm talking to indie filmmakers out there who want to, hire visual effects artists to come in and just like drop it in their plate down the line and be like, hey, make this happen. What, you shot everything and you want me to do what now? And I think it's so important is like get in touch with visual effects artists when you're in pre-production. So that way, when you get to post-production and get to that point, you have everything you need. Start planning. So
and if there's anybody out there listening, you can go to www.joelaude.com and hire me. You can see my demo reel on there and see all the cool
LAUDE, which we are going.
Yes.
We're going to put in the description so you can go check it out. You should. First of all, I want to hire him. I just don't make any money. This would be the best channel on the planet if I could afford him. But this man's been doing it forever. And I remember when we were living together in LA, just watching TV while you're at your desk, just bitching. Like, son of a bitch note. Every time you got a note, you were pissed. But you always did it professional. You were always professional and did it great. So I have 2 questions from Grandizer. Let's do this and we'll start wrapping up. How's it sound? Sure. All right. Grandizer asks, any nuclear war movies get any honorable mention here? I've got one. I'd love to hear yours though. Like let's do maybe a nuclear explosion in a movie.
Like a depiction of.
Yeah.
I immediately what comes to mind is T2.
Good one. Yeah. That's a really good one.
Because that there's the big broad the effect itself, the shockwave and everything, but then you also kind of see you see the personal side, that scale of her, at the fence getting hit by the shockwave and being burned and disintegrated and whatnot.
I love that. That's a great choice. I'm surprised T2 didn't make either of our lists. But there's been so many others that have been inspired from T2. That's why it's kind of a tough one. I would say for me, my favorite, and actually I think it was the best one on screen that year, the year Oppenheimer came out, was Godzilla -1. When he does his atomic blast and he blows, it honestly, it's one of the most horrifying nuclear explosions on screen, in my opinion.
Okay.
But all right, what's the last question we got? Best foreign film visual effects movies or top 3? I'm not going to do a top 3 because I'd really have to think about that. I don't think you know how much time goes into my top 5s, man. I am going to try and think of something visual effects from a foreign film. There's so many. That's why I'm like, I'm not going to say my favorite because I'd really have to think about this.
Well, I mean, this probably wouldn't be one thing that people would think of, but technically The Fifth Element is a French movie.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's technically a foreign film. But I'd have to think about it.
Yeah, I'd really have to think about it. I'm not 100%. Maybe Kangaroo Jack. Does that work? Definitely not. Turkish Star Wars is good. Great visual effects in it. When you don't know that I'm messing with you. You know what it is? I'm afraid to pick because I could really want to think about this one. And who has like the best visual effects? Russia's put out some good stuff with visual effects. Italy, some, not much, but some. They used to be really good back in the classic films. Have a lot of visual effects.
The Host
was great. Oh, Korea. Why did I not think of Korea?
That's
Japan.
I was trying to think of.
Japan. Godzilla -1 is one of the best visual effects movies I've ever seen. And they've made 40 of them. So yeah, Japan, Korea probably are 2 countries that have it. China does some great stuff with visual effects. And they've upped their game. Like their game, I'd say 25 years ago was not the same to what it is now. Yeah, The Host is a good one.
I feel like there's something rattling in the back of my head that's like screaming, like I'm over here, but my brain's not retrieving it.
Mickey 17 had some great visual effects.
Which one?
Mickey 17, which is
it's on the server. I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah, check it out. Also, AI Rising 2018. It's an Eastern European movie. All right, check it out. We do know AI is rising, though. a lot. But we're not going to talk about that tonight. We'll get into. I would love to pick your brain about that. But I want to say thank you for coming here. Again, if you are looking for any of your films or anything like that, or filmmakers who are looking visual effects artists, we're going to put it down below. But it is Joe Laude, LAUDE.com. If you want to go and reach out to him, see his work, and maybe hire him for something. I think. District 9. I'd have to look at distribution. It's South African, but I just don't know.
South Africa. I'm not sure if it was.
I don't think it was like produced by South Africa though. By any production companies there. I'd have to look at it, but it is a stunning and beautiful visual effects in that movie. And a heart-wrenching story too. I loved it. But yeah, I just want to say thank you guys. Thank you, Joe, for being on and hanging out with us.
Thanks for having me.
I love when you come on, so we'll have you on.
Yeah.
But we're going to be doing this again next week. Of course, Mondays is our normal day at 8 p.m. So make sure to come back, check out for that. You have to follow us at the Scene Snobs all over social media and on Letterboxd and Substack, where we have updates and we do written reviews of all of our movies over there as well. Oh, excuse me. You can follow us on Patreon. We have a free tier where you have our updates on there, but also paid tiers where we have perks available and a few more things, so you can go check those out as well. We have great reviews always coming out. We have a new Does It Suck coming out this week and next week. Classic film reviews, old movies, new movies, movie discussions, and everything else in between, the podcast, things like that. So we love you being here for that. We appreciate you guys just being around, hanging out with us, having a good old time. And make sure you take care of yourselves, because that's important. And before we get going, Joe, you have anything you want to add?
I am happy.
I love it. That's the way we need to be. 2027, we're going into happiness. I love you guys. Take care of yourselves like the man always says, and be kind and rewind. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Just wrapping up my podcast.
Remember to eat your nuggets. That's what's